Can the artist's way really take me from burnt out author to bold creative in just 12 weeks? Join me week by week as I navigate my way out of the creative void. This is week 1 and we are recovering our sense of safety. After years of pouring my heart and every bit of free time into writing and illustrating children's books, without seeing any tangible results, I found myself completely burned out. I was exhausted, not just creatively, emotionally, professionally, as a mother, as a person. So I decided to accept that this was not going to happen for me, and I decided to stop. If you want to know more about that story, you can check out the previous video in this collection. Okay, so what are we learning in week 1? Okay, so first we're noticing and healing those voices that told us that art was not for us. Voices that could be teachers, your parents, society, even yourself. This chapter introduces us to a concept called the shadow artist, which means that when someone knows deep down that they want to be an artist, or they are an artist in their soul, but they actually want to hide it. This one really resonated with me. Timid young artists, adding parental fears to their own, often give up their sunny dreams of artistic careers, settling into a twilight world of could-have beens and regrets. There, caught between the dream of action and the fear of failure, shadow artists are born. If you're like me and you're from Latin America, or a country that has similar rules and similar cultures, you're probably would have grown up hearing that art isn't a real career, and that maybe you cannot really make money to be an artist. Like for me growing up, for example, I grew up in a city called Guadalajara, very conservative city, and if you wanted to be an actor or someone famous, you had to go to Mexico City. And I guess growing up, people give you all these really terrible things that, oh my god, you're gonna get kidnapped, you're gonna die, you're gonna all these things that makes you feel like, well, maybe pursuing that is not safe enough, right? I thought it was really interesting, at least from that perspective. Another thing that Julia mentions is that we need to be kind to ourselves and acknowledge that our journey might be different to other people's. One line that really stood out for me was, shadow artists are gravitating to the rightful tribe but cannot yet claim their birthright. As a rule of thumb, shadow artists judge themselves harshly, beating themselves for years over the fact that they have not acted on their dream. Remember, it takes nurturing to make an artist. Shadow artists did not receive sufficient nurturing. And I think for me, as a self-published author, I think it took 3 books for me to actually feel like I was genuinely an author, and I felt like always like my work was good enough, and I could justify like I'm not selling enough because my art is not good enough, my illustrations are not good enough. And Julia mentions here in the book, judging your early artistic efforts is artist abuse. So I think she invites us to be kind to ourselves and realize like, whoa, yeah, maybe my pictures, my drawing were not very good like a year ago, but because I kept doing it, I've kept improving. And then you're like, well, maybe I'm really comparing myself to Mem Fox, who has published like 20 books. She's been writing for 20 years and she's like always the top 5 best-selling books, at least in Australia. And I think it's a little bit unkind to compare yourself to someone who has a brilliant career in something. Like you were not gonna ask a child that is in kindergarten to solve an algebra equation, right? Like you wouldn't do that. Like that's not fair. I also think that now in the age of social media, when you see other people or you perceive that they're actually being successful, it just really doesn't help you, because as much as social media can be a source of inspiration, it can also be a source of comparison. It happens to me all the time. Like I kid you not, I've been doing this for 10 years. I got my Instagram account for my Millie books. I got it in like 2019, and I've seen other authors with less books with probably not a very distinct character, and they have like 3,000 followers on Instagram, right? And sometimes I will feel myself like, got it. I'm like, but then if I look at within, I'm like, well, this girl is posting, she's posting like 3-4 times a week. I'm posting like every 2 months. So there's that disparity as well. And I think that's on the one part, that promotion part. But also in the book, Julia tells us that we actually need to give ourselves permission to be bad artists. Allow yourself to produce bad art. Allow yourself to produce art that is going to go nowhere. For me, this is a really difficult thing. Like, the only time when I can do it is when I'm with my kids and I know that I'm going to draw. In Mexico, we have like Mexican bingo. It's called La Loteria. And, with that, sometimes we just pick 3 cards and then draw whatever is on those 3 cards. Or just come up with a new character from those 3 cards. And I just find it really fun and like a really good way to, like, when you don't know what to draw and you know that you just want to practice, it's okay. It's not gonna, it can go in the bin, you can take a picture, but it's not gonna become art. Give yourself permission to be a bad artist. Give yourself permission to color outside the lines. Julia believes, and I agree with her, we can only grow through play, through mess, and through practice. And actually, something I learned in my day job that I actually need to apply to my artist career is progress over perfection. Sometimes, in corporate, and if you work in an office, you'll understand. Sometimes you have a project and you have a deadline and you have to come up with a minimum viable product or something that is going to actually get you across the line, because it's your day job. You have to like make sure that you deliver things on time. And sometimes things don't have to be perfect, but they have to work well enough for you to be able to move on. And I think for me, this is something that I'll definitely be applying to art. So how did week 1 go for you? This week didn't start smoothly for me. So over the past month, I've been in Mexico for a holiday, and then I said, as soon as I come into Melbourne, I will start doing the artist way. But 2 days before coming back, my phone stopped working, like the screen stopped working, like the touch screen, and I couldn't change it there because pixels are not very popular in Mexico. So I had to wait until I came here, and then I finally found someone to help me fix it. I also came back to a broken washing machine. For some reason, the door wasn't working, so I also couldn't do my laundry. But you know what? That first day that I had back, instead of going to sleep and trying to rest, I'm like, no, I have to go to the city to get this phone fixed. And the phone guy is like, well, it's going to take a couple of hours. So I thought to myself, I'm going to use this time to go to my artist date. Okay, so to my artist date, I went to the National Gallery of Victoria. I have to say, this is one of my favorite places in Melbourne, not only because it's a beautiful building, surrounded with water, and it's got that beautiful glass fountain, but it just has always amazing artwork. And if you've been following me on social media, you would have seen that I've been to this exhibition and that exhibition at the National Gallery. But this time, because I came back from overseas, I'm going to be low budget for a couple of months, okay? So I only went to the free section. So I'm just going to tell you the top 3 artworks that caught my eye and that I actually really like from there. So the first one was The Weeping Woman by Picasso. And I think I like this painting probably more about the story of the painting than the actual painting. I really love the green and the bold colors, but also in the 80s, it was actually stolen from the National Gallery, and I just want to check to see if it was still there. Speaking of Picasso, now that we know that he's got a bit of problematic behavior, do you think we can really separate the art from the artist? Or is this problematic behavior sometimes part of what makes the artist, and then that is presented in their art? In 2025, when we cancel anyone and everyone for every little mishap, I'm not exactly sure what to think. I feel like there's a line that we shouldn't cross, but other than that, we all are human and make mistakes. Not justifying Picasso, just saying. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think. And because an artist, like, I don't think it's gonna be possible to be above reproach. Okay, the second artwork that caught my eye, and I actually hadn't noticed this one in the NGV, was an art called Truisms by Jenny Holzer. I had never seen this before, but basically what the artist did, she was an avid reader, and what she did is she collated a lot of sentences from different books, and she put them as posters in alphabetical order, right? And she assembled like really punchy one-liner texts that would represent really bold ideas, and really bold ideas at the time, and for today's world as well, I think. Think, for example, there was one that said, a man can't know what it is like to be a mother, right? And this iconic street from the 70s caused a lot of debate, because what she did is like she put it as posters in New York, and then people were talking about it and debating and arguing about one of those sentences. So I thought it was, you know, if you see art as something that needs to cause conversation and needs to reflect what society is thinking at the time, I think this is a perfect example of it. The last artwork that caught my eye was Queen Esther by Edwin Long. To be honest, I've never seen it before, or I never noticed this before, but this time I saw it because it's a really, really big painting, and I originally thought it was Cleopatra, and then when I went closer and I realized it was Esther, I was like, oh, I had no idea like how, you know, I guess the fashion at the time looked. Her story, you know, Esther's story reminds me about vulnerability, and sometimes how vulnerability can be stronger than violence and than reason, maybe. To me, I think Esther's story shows us that I guess she did what she could with the tools that she had. Speaking of vulnerability and the vulnerability of Esther, Julia in the book gives us a few exercises this week. So one of the activities that she has in the book, you know, as I mentioned before, she gives you like, I don't know, like 10 activities, and you can choose like 2 or 3 or 4, as many as you can do, to kind of reflect on your journey. But in this particular one, it was about writing about your old 3 old creative monsters, she calls it. Like maybe people who told you, oh, you know what, you're not good enough, or you're never going to be an artist, and things like that. I have to say that I'm grateful that I've never experienced that from my family. Definitely experienced that from school. Like I remember, you know, in junior high school, when we were saying like, I want to do this and I want to do that. Let's say somebody said, oh, I'm going to be a fashion designer. Then some of the stronger girls would be like, oh, you're going to be a seamstress. Like there's nothing wrong with being a seamstress, right? But there was that thing that probably came from their parents, that these were careers that were not going to pay a lot. For me also, growing up, you know, I had a scholarship, and I guess I was a poor girl in the rich girls' school. I could see all these girls had a lot of money, and their parents were doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs. Anyway, so my 3 monsters that I chose were one, what, like at the time I didn't think about that. Now that I'm telling you, that could have been a monster that I've written about, but no. So one that I wrote about first was a Disney Channel audition that I did in my 20s with my friend. We did it for a bit of a laugh. We didn't go past the first round, but I guess that was like kind of that rejection. But you know when you're like, well, I didn't want it anyway, so it's fine. But deep down you're like, oh my god, I would have loved to win it, to at least go to the next round. The second one was, I actually pitched Millie probably a couple of years ago to a TV channel, and you know they came back to me saying, like your presentation was really good, really professional, but thank you, but not thank you, kind of thing. And I asked for feedback, and the feedback was very wishy-washy. It was really, there was nothing tangible that I could say, I need to improve in this, right? And the third one was also very similar. So I sent a manuscript that has nothing to do with Millie. I sent this manuscript to an editor, and I pitched it in an event, and I kind of thought they liked it, for their faces and the reaction. I'm like, oh yeah, I think they liked it. Obviously, they immediately gave me feedback straight away, like where I went wrong. I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing feedback. I fixed the manuscript and I sent it back. And then she replied saying, well, we're not going to proceed with you. And then I asked for feedback, like if you went 100%, what score would you give Millie? And how can I close that gap? Like, how can this story, or it was actually Millie, how can I close this gap to the 20, like, if it was 80%, like that 20%, what do I need to do to close that gap? And she just came back with something like, well, I really had to love the story enough to commit to it. And it's kind of like, well, I don't love it, so therefore I can't. Which is fair enough. It's sort of felt fair enough for them, right? But you know what? As much as I want to put a brave face, like all of these three things have in common something, that is rejection, right? And I think as human beings, it's ingrained in our survival that we cannot accept rejection, because imagine in a tribe, a little baby or a little kid that is being rejected could actually die, right? Like the survival of humanity has been because we are tribal. It kind of like really stung. Like I actually let myself finally feel the pain. And there was another exercise that was really interesting, which was to write a letter to the editor. And Julia says, a letter to the editors defending your work. And I kind of wrote, I think I wrote a paragraph because I didn't really know what to write other than, well, it's a subjective thing, right? But I wrote, you're missing out, because this could have been a commercial success and whatnot, very, very business minded, right? But I'm like, you're missing out. And as soon as I wrote it, I started crying, because a part of me is like, really? Are they really missing out? No, this editor is living her best life. The person at Disney, they're living their best life. And then it took me to a tangent of a lot of the times that I've experienced rejection, not necessarily just with art, but it's like, oh, a lot of these people are just living their best life. It's like I have nothing to say other than you have to like feel it and that's it, right? Because sometimes the editor, the casting director, whatever it is, they're not even gonna be remembering you because they saw 1,000 people, they get 1,000 manuscripts. I guess you can blame them for that, right? Anyway, as slim as those opportunities are, I think we still as artists need to accept that is just part of the game. And I don't know, maybe one day we will stop caring about rejection. Anyway, I hope Julia stops making me cry, and I hope the next chapters I don't cry. The other activity was to write 5 alternate lives, and this was really fun because in the book it said, well, you have to live your life as if you were that thing, right? So my things were actress, film. Julia in this chapter talks a lot about like negative beliefs, you can't be both creative and financially stable, right? Like 4 of them actually hit me hard. I actually circled them here. I will do bad work and not know it and look like a fool. I will never have any real money. I think that's the one that actually stung the most. I will have only one good piece of work in me. Then I realized I don't care. I don't care if I'm a one-hit wonder. If I get millions of dollars. Anyway, and then the last one was like, it's too late. If I haven't become a fully functioning artist yet, I never will. That one is the one that hit the hardest, because I'm like, look, dude, I'm in my 40s. How many people do we see that just because you turn 40 or 50, you're like, oh, you can't do that. You can't do that because you're too old. And that is a limiting belief. So what she says is like, write this down and, you know, write the opposite so that you can actually do it. And I've been doing it with the morning pages, like I'm a prolific author, I'm a successful author, things like that. Something that she said is like, sometimes we will look at art and say, oh my God, this art is not that good. Like this person is not that talented. And how are they having an exhibition, or how are they selling millions of books? It says, all too often it's audacity and not talent that moves an artist to center stage. Do you remember that, like that banana, like there's a banana stuck with duct tape and that is like worth hundreds and thousands of dollars? Like that's audacity. I still cannot explain myself why that is art. If somebody wants to explain to me, please explain it to me. But somebody had the enough audacity to say, yes, this is art. Anyway, this is an invitation to work on our audacity. Okay, now for the check-in. So every week you have to actually check in and say how many times you did, you know, the activities and how did you feel. So the first week check-in, how many days this week did you do your morning pages? To me, I did 6 out of 7 because one day I had to go to work and I just woke up and then instead of like doing it, I just woke up and had a shower and left. And then it's like, oh, I didn't do it. But I have to say, after being like doing the morning pages for more days than I've been doing this, I noticed a lot more mental clarity. So there's something to it, Julia. Did you do the artist date this week? And of course I did it. I actually went to the NGV. I told you all about it and I loved it. And then were there any other issues this week that you consider significant to your recovery? So these are my biggest takeaways for week 1. Okay, number 1, we all have creative monsters that we may actually be carrying for a long time. Those monsters, we, you know, like in a video game, like in a book, we need to face them, we need to kill them or flip them, put them in a jar, something like that. But like make sure, like, actually no, put them in a jar, no. We need to face them so we can actually flip the narrative into believing that we can actually do something with our art. And the second one for me is people succeed not because they're better, it's just because they actually dared to try and they actually made that phone call. They actually tried to go networking. They actually went and made a video. And yes, a lot of people succeed because they're Nepo babies or because they have a network. I guess that's just going to be part of the game. Who would not want to help their child out? Like, honestly. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to do the artist way with me, you absolutely can. There's a link in the description for you to purchase the book. It's an affiliate link, but it doesn't cost you any extra. I just get a small commission from Amazon as an affiliate. And it helps me make these videos and it helps me see if I'm actually helping anyone or if I'm just like a crazy lady just talking here. And yeah, if you're doing the artist way, tell me how are you doing and how did you find week 1? And stay tuned because next week we're going to be recovering our sense of identity. See you next time.